A 4-year-old girl all alone at the southern border. What her mother is telling us tonight. Plus, President Biden silent and Donald Trump with a warning. That's Topping the Hill on NewsNation tonight.
I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
I could speak for the president, and he said he would not pardon his son.
That was then, this is now, and today the president left the explaining up to his team and to his wife.
Dr. Biden, do you support the pardon of Hunter?
But silence today from the man with the pardon power. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. President Joe Biden giving his son Hunter Biden a full pardon for a full decade of crimes committed and other questionable behavior. And then not just skipping out of town, rather heading abroad to Africa. The president in Angola this evening for a long-planned trip to tout U.S. investments. But the trip also doubling as a shield for scrutiny. We saw the president today briefly off in the distance, but we did not hear from him. The White House asked why the president and his team said one thing for months, only to walk it back, or as some might say, lie. That moment happening aboard Air Force One and away from the cameras.
He came to this decision this weekend, and he said he wrestled with this, and because he believes in the justice system, but he also believes that the war politics infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice.
Now tonight, even some Democratic lawmakers are questioning how this pardon was handled by the president. We'll speak with one here on the Hill in a moment. But we begin tonight with our Joe Khalil, live once again at the White House for us. Joe?
Hey, Blake, well, we've heard virtually nothing from this White House so far today, other than, as you heard, Karine Jean-Pierre on Air Force One answering questions from some pretty frustrated reporters, but basically just repeating what was already in President Biden's statement from last night. She didn't add very much. So what we are left asking still is who President Biden might have consulted with, how he came to this decision, and whether or not he talked to his son Hunter in making this decision. Now, they're not responding either to several of the Democrats who've come out and who have criticized the president of their own party, and there were several. My sources on the Democratic side have said there are really two schools of thought. One is that they potentially have ceded some moral authority here, some moral high ground when it comes to their criticizing Donald Trump now for his pardons, people who were close allies, even potentially January 6th rioters. Other Democrats have said it's good to hear their own party standing up and criticizing the president, because what they say that shows is that they still have some moral high ground, calling out hypocrisy not just on the other side, but within their own camp as well, Blake.
Joe Khalil, live for us at the White House. Joe, thank you. So the reaction here in Washington is just about what you might expect. Republican lawmakers with disdain, some arguing a pardon now opens Hunter Biden up to congressional testimony down the line. Many Democrats cheering the president on. But there's also some Democratic lawmakers who have come forward with questions. For example, Colorado's governor, possible 2028 presidential hopeful, Jared Polis, along with that state senator, Michael Bennet, who ran for president in 2020, say the president put family over country. In the House, Ohio's Greg Landsman and Maine's Jared Golden, who both won highly competitive seats, called it a setback for public service and trust. And the border state Congressman Greg Stanton, who just won re-election but saw his margin shrink, says he respects the president but thinks he got this one wrong. Congressman Stanton, who represent parts of the Phoenix area, joins us live here on the Hill this evening. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
You got it. So tell me why, first off, a couple things. Tell me why you feel the way you do, and tell me why you felt the need to come public.
Well, the president until yesterday had insisted that he was not going to grant a pardon to his son, and he indicated that he had supported the judicial process that led us here. As you know, Hunter Biden was convicted by a jury of his peers of significant felonies. In addition, in the tax case, he had pled guilty to those felonies. There's no indication that the special counsel who charged Hunter Biden was in any way swayed by politics or acted in a political manner. In fact, those are the arguments that Donald Trump has generally made about the Department of Justice as they act upon political considerations. I think it is critically important that we try to build up American confidence in our judicial system and the Department of Justice at a time that it's coming under attack. And this decision by the president to pardon his son, I think, and to do it in a way where he suggests it was a political prosecution, I think undermines the Department of Justice and hurts this important institution and the rule of law.
Members of Congress often talk amongst themselves, and in Washington, you know this, Congressman, we hear whispers of what people are saying behind the scenes. Do you know of any other Democrats who feel the way that you do, but yet haven't come forward?
Look, I'm a proud member of the Democratic Democratic caucus inside the Congress. It is not a shy group. So I think you're going to be hearing a lot of members speak their mind on this issue over the next few days. I'll get on an airplane and head back to Washington tomorrow because we start voting tomorrow night. So reporters will have a chance to directly interact with members. And this is not a shy group. They will speak their mind about how they feel about this important issue. I just think it's important that the American people have confidence in the system of justice, that they don't feel like there is a two-tiered system of justice. And President Biden for so long had built up the Department of Justice against the attacks from Trump and his close supporters. And I think, unfortunately, what happened yesterday sent us in the wrong direction.
I hear you in confidence on the Department of Justice, but I want to ask you that, or your take on confidence sort of in a different way. Here was the president earlier this year, and I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
You have.
Okay, so you talk about, Congressman, confidence in the DOJ. President Biden, though, is still the president of the United States for the next 49 days, still the commander-in-chief for the next 49 days. So when the American public sees that, hears that, know what they heard over the last 6 months, why should the American public over the next 49 days believe that when Joe Biden says something, he means it and he's telling the truth?
Well, I respect President Biden. I've worked with him and his administration and his team during his 4 years in office. And I just think he got this one wrong. The reason that he put out yesterday
Do you think he lied?
Change of heart on this most important issue is that he suggested that the prosecution of his son was somehow based on politics. And that's where I get frustrated, because I think we need to build up the public's confidence in the judicial system. And I think that takes us in the wrong direction.
I should note also, you're an attorney by trade, hence I believe your focus here on the DOJ. I asked you in there, and I don't know if you heard me, but do you think the president lied when he said what he did?
Look, I respect President Biden, and he has been an honorable person throughout his time in public life. I don't know why he changed his mind on this most important issue. Obviously, I read the statement, and his statement was based upon the fact that he believes that this was a political process that led to this conviction of his son. I strongly disagree with that. I feel like in my position, I need to speak out on that, because this is the exact same argument that Donald Trump is going to make about his own prosecution. I do not think that Donald Trump was a victim of a political prosecution. These were serious felonies that he were charged with, and a jury of his peers convicted him. And it's the exact same situation with Hunter Biden. And we need to build up confidence in this system, not suggest that politics are at play. The Department of Justice is an incredibly important institution in America. And they deserve, those professional prosecutors, the staff there, they deserve the support of leaders in this country. And there's no indication that the special prosecutor in this case acted in a political way.
All right. Congressman Greg Stanton, who represents parts of the Phoenix area there in Arizona. Thank you for being with us tonight here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, sir. You got it. All right. Joining me now, Julia Manchester, national political reporter for TheHill.com. The congressman is a Democrat, came out against the president doing what he did. You think that there's a lot of Democrats who feel like they were thrown under the bus.
A lot of Democrats across the board. I mean, we are hearing Senator Gary Peters, Senator Tammy Baldwin, Governor Jared Polis. All of these Democrats are coming out against the president, and it comes after a number of these same Democrats had said that we should take the president at his word, that he will not pardon his son.
And hence the question of the congressman, he's still the president for the next 49 days. So when he says, fill in the blank, how do you trust that he means fill in the blank when we all just witnessed that?
Exactly. I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen next. But look, I will say this. A lot of Democrats seem very frustrated because they essentially pointed to the guilty conviction for Hunter Biden, the fact that Hunter Biden was going through all of this, saying, look, this isn't a two-tiered system of justice. See what Hunter Biden, the president's son, is going through. But now they can't fall back on that because President Biden has pardoned him.
Julia Manchester, national political reporter for TheHill.com. See you later in the show.
Thanks,
Thank
Blake.
you. You got it. All right, so Hunter Biden is the 26th pardon of Joe Biden's presidency. In comparison to past presidents, Biden's number is still low. There was Bill Clinton with a total of 396, one of the highest, President Nixon, 863. With 49 days left in the Biden presidency, we can expect this number to only go up from here because traditionally pardons, both controversial in nature and not, are among some of the last actions that presidents make in the final days. With me now, the host of the best Sunday show in the business, Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, to break it all down. Hello, sir.
Does America know how fast you get over here from the desk?
It's only like...
Guy's a varsity collegiate athlete, Division I. It's true. It's true.
And a bad one. All right, go for it.
All right, so... you've already talked about the pardons by president. Oh, look, there's Roger Clinton. He's right there. So we thought we'd take a little trip down memory lane and look at some of the controversial pardons of the past. Roger Clinton seems to be the most resonant to this one. This is Bill Clinton's half-brother, went to prison, cocaine trafficking charges. Roger Clinton was still a problem for Bill Clinton when Hillary Clinton was running for president.
Came back.
His Secret Service code name was Headache. Okay.
I know that.
But there was another Clinton pardon that got a lot of attention. How about Mark Rich? Show me Mark Rich. Blam. Okay, Mark Rich, this guy's international fugitive. His wife gave Bill Clinton a saxophone, made these huge donations, and lo and behold, Mark Rich, this international fugitive who had violated U.S. Oil embargo on Iran, gets a pardon at the very end, and it looked an awful lot like Bill Clinton was selling it.
January 20th. That's when you do it. You're the president until noon.
Yeah, that's when you do it.
Yep.
But the one that Democrats are going to talk the most about, and everybody's going to talk the most about, is the next guy. And this is Mr. Kushner. Yes. Okay. Now, he is Donald Trump's designee to be the U.S. ambassador to France. But prior to that, he did a long stint in prison, 2 years in prison, for financial crimes, but also for hiring a prostitute to try to basically blackmail his sister out of testifying against him. One of these shocking, sordid, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he gave $1 million, or his family group gave $1 million to Trump's reelection campaign. He's the president's father, or the president's daughter's father-in-law, and now he's going to probably be the U.S. ambassador to France. So family tidings and wealthy people seem to get a lot of good loving when it comes to pardons.
Steyerwalt breaks it down. Before I run, I got like 30 seconds with you. What'd you make of what you heard there from Greg Stanton?
Yeah, I mean, they're all going to come because this is where you get a free...
More of them coming down the line.
And we've heard Bennett from Colorado and others, because this is where it's a free fire zone. Democrats are mad at Joe Biden about a bunch of things. This is their opportunity to stay to their constituents. But remember, this is what I said about Joe Biden. So this is a freebie.
All right, still to come here on The Hill. Trump's pick to lead the FBI is vowing to overhaul the agency. Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former White House chief of staff, joins us here on the other side of the break. Plus, exclusive NewsNation video showing migrant children found all alone at the border. It is heartbreaking. We are live from Texas with the very latest. And did Bernie Sanders just praise Elon Musk? Elon Musk following Bernie Sanders back now on his platform. What is going on there? I'm Blake Berman. Welcome to the Hill. Welcome to Washington. This is the center of politics, and we're back and forth. On NewsNation, President-elect Donald Trump bashing President Biden's pardoning of his son Hunter. In a Truth Social post, Trump says, quote, "Does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been imprisoned for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice." Now, Trump has also added a new item to his to-do list when he takes over if his demands aren't met. Today, he threatened retaliation in the Middle East if hostages are not released by the time he walks into the Oval Office. Our Robert Sherman, live for us once again in Transition headquarters in Palm Beach, Florida. Robert?
Hey there, Blake. The president-elect's team coming out slamming the pardoning of Hunter Biden, with one of his spokespeople, Stephen Chung, saying, quote, "The failed witch hunts against President Trump have proven that the Democrat-controlled DOJ and other radical prosecutors are guilty of weaponizing the justice system. That system of justice must be fixed, and due process must be restored for all Americans," which is exactly what President Trump will do as he returns to the White House with an overwhelming mandate for the American people. Also, his Attorney General pick, Pam Bondi, on Capitol Hill today, meeting with Senator Chuck Grassley, hoping to grease the skids for her confirmation process. The same can be said for his Defense Secretary pick, Pete Hegseth, who is meeting with Senator Tommy Tuberville. And lastly, a stern warning to Hamas as tensions continue to boil in the Middle East. Put simply, release the hostages by Inauguration Day or else. Blake?
Our Robert Sherman, live for us in Florida once again this evening. Robert, thank you. Joining us now, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor. Hello, Mick. Always great to see you. Nice to speak with you, sir. Here's what I noticed, and tell me if you picked up on the same thing. Donald Trump was fairly quiet today. I know that was obviously a pretty big threat that he made as it relates to the Middle East, but was he just sort of sitting back and letting this Hunter Biden thing play out?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's correct to characterize the Trump team as outraged that this has happened. I read this the statement that Stephen Chung put out. I don't see the same outrage. In fact, if I'm on the Trump team, Biden just gave me a huge gift. I mean, look what he did. He said, I'm pardoning my son because the justice system is too political. Period. End of story. That's it. That is the reason that he's justifying his son. Not because, I know he's guilty, I did it, and I just can't stand to see my son in prison, and I'm the president, so there it is. No, he gave a specific excuse, saying this was politicized. That plays right into Donald Trump's argument from the very beginning. It plays into Donald Trump's winning argument in the election campaign, which is making the argument that the government was politicized against people. So if I'm the Trump team, maybe I put out a couple things saying, he lied about it. That's what all Democrats do, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, this is a huge gift to Donald Trump.
Pardons normally happen at the end, Mick, of an administration. Donald Trump keeps teasing this idea of pardons for those involved in the January 6th riot. Do you think he does it at the beginning of his term?
There's a chance, simply because your logic is correct in that typically pardons come at the end. But this is an unusual circumstance where Donald Trump is starting his second term, can't run again. Can you make the argument that he could do something on day one that he would typically wait 4 years to do? Yeah, I think he probably could. It's not going to hurt him politically. I don't know. Over the course of the Trump time in office in the first term, we did pardons from time to time. We had a committee. Right. Every now and then they made recommendations, et cetera. My guess is you'll see that same structure again. So you could see some pardons early in Trump 2.0. You could also see some come much later.
Kash Patel, who Donald Trump wants to be his next FBI director. Donald Trump, we know, fired James Comey to put Christopher Wray in. And now I guess you got to fire Christopher Wray to get Kash Patel in. How does all this work, Mick? And I should let the audience know, you were once Senate confirmed yourself, so you know the process well.
Mm-hmm. I was Senate confirmed, and I was also an acting director. Everybody's sort of going around saying, Donald Trump can make Kash Patel the acting director. Yes and no. He has to do a little gymnastics. He would have to appoint him to the deputy position. That is not Senate confirmed. And then he'd have to fire Christopher Wray, which he has the absolute authority to do. Everybody acknowledges that the president has the right to fire the FBI director, as Trump did the first time around with James Comey, or he could just convince Wray to retire or resign. And by that vacancy, that automatically Kash Patel becomes the acting director. It's different, Blake, for just about every agency. The FBI is a little bit different than, say, with the CFPB. When I took over there as an acting director, generally speaking, any confirmed person can serve for another confirmed spot on an acting basis, but the FBI is an exception. So Trump can do it. It might dodge what could be a divisive Senate confirmation hearing for Kash Patel. I know a lot of Republicans like him, but when Lindsey Graham came out today and said, yay, Pam Bondi, she's great, and then they asked about Kash Patel, and his answer was, I've known him for a long time.
That's the tell
that's
that
not
he...
exactly the same... same
he might have an
approval.
uphill climb. Yep. All right, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor. Thank you, sir. Talk to you again soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Blake.
You got it. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. We're talking with one lawmaker on the other side of the break about what is going on in the Middle East right now. An op-ed out today that suggests Donald Trump's biggest challenge in the Middle East might not be something you expect. Congressman Issa, other side of the break. Stay with us. Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. President-elect Donald Trump made securing the border a key issue in his campaign, even proposing at one point to use the military in Mexico to wage war against the cartels if need be. Well, now the president of Mexico is weighing in. In a press conference earlier today, Claudia Sheinbaum strongly opposed the idea, calling it a violation of her country's sovereignty. She was, however, open to collaborating on other border security measures. Meanwhile, up to the north, the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, promising to ramp up border security after meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. All this comes as a surging number of unaccompanied minors, children, as you see there, are crossing into the U.S. Last week, we told you about a 4-year-old girl found traveling all alone at the southern border, just one of many. Our NewsNation correspondent, Jorge Ventura, live in Texas with an update. Jorge, you've been speaking with that girl's mother. What have you learned?
Yeah, that's right, Blake. When Texas DPS first encountered that little girl, it touched the hearts of millions of Americans, and she is just one of the thousands of unaccompanied minors being smuggled across the border. I was able to make contact with her mother, who told me that she paid human smugglers in Honduras around $4,500 to place her daughter in the hands of multiple smugglers from Honduras to Mexico and across the southern border. And the mother now provided me new images of her daughter while in Mexico. According to her mother, the smuggler was actually providing updates to the mom throughout their journey. You're seeing some of those images now. And one of those images, Blake, caught my attention because it looks like the little girl was being held in a stash house. And behind her, that's the image right there, you could actually see more children. There was a baby. We had to blur out their face. So it's likely that those children will also be smuggled across the border. And according to the mother, she is still waiting from U.S. immigration officials to find out exactly when she will be released. But right now, Blake, in Maverick County, Texas, seeing a massive surge of unaccompanied children. Just in the past week, Texas troopers alone encountered over 100 unaccompanied children.
Why are they telling you, Jorge, why are they telling you that's the case right now?
So according to some of my contacts in Mexico, they say the reason why we're seeing it in Maverick County is right across Maverick County is Piedras Negras, Mexico. Now, Piedras Negras doesn't have a cartel stronghold, meaning that multiple smugglers from different criminal organizations could actually smuggle children there without having to pay a cartel tax. We're still following this little girl's story, Blake, so as soon as she gets released, we're hoping to make contact with her and find out more about her journey to the U.S.
Fantastic reporting, as always. Thank you. Appreciate it. Meantime, the southern border, not the only foreign challenge the incoming Trump administration must tackle. There are a multitude of global threats spanning across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. The latest in Syria, where hundreds of Iraqi fighters are helping the government fight rebels who seized Aleppo just the other day. Yet, as well, Israel's battles against Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran also remain at the forefront. Nearly 1 week after President Biden announced a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, that truce, there's questions about how much intact that can actually hold. Hezbollah firing today into Israel, an Israel-held area after multiple Israeli strikes in Lebanon. The militant group calling this move a warning shot in response. Now, Israel's Defense Force also responding to the strike, saying it is a violation to the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon, adding the IDF is prepared to continue operating wherever necessary. Joining me now is the Republican Congressman of California, Darrell Issa, who is also a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it. You have been warning about another region, and that is Yemen and the Houthis. We saw them fire as well just over the weekend at U.S.-backed U.S. ships that had U.S. flags. And there was an op-ed, Congressman, that caught my eye. It said Trump's most pressing Mideast challenge is to curb the Houthis. You've been warning about this. Is that spot on?
Absolutely is. The fact is they have already cost Americans and Europeans tens of billions of dollars because ships now go all the way around the Horn in order to avoid going through and taking those risks. But they've also had a profound effect on continuing Iran's ability to show its strength through its proxies. And it's got to stop. It was stopped. Iran was stopped under Ronald Reagan. They did very little under the first Trump administration. And Trump clearly is going to hit the ground running when he gets there. Obviously, he's already created a special envoy.
So do you think this is the first thing that he should focus on there in the Middle East? Not Israel, not Gaza, not Lebanon, but what's going on in Yemen?
Well, he's going to inherit a very difficult, already negotiated situation with Lebanon, one that remains to be seen if it'll stay intact. And I know the president has already said he's supportive, but declawing Iran and rallying our natural allies, this is something that Mossad Bolos, who's been named special advisor to the president, is probably going to be at the center of, in other words, a broader peace. Because the president wants to pick up the Abraham Accords where he left off. It was a great success, but nothing has been added to it during the last 4 years.
The president president-elect sent out a social media post today, Congressman, and here's what he said. He said in part, quote, that there will be all hell to pay if the hostages don't come out. All hell to pay in the Middle East, and for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity. What do you think Donald Trump means there?
Well, all hell means that if Hamas thinks that they've been beat and beat and beat for over a year, they have no idea what our intelligence and our capability will do around the globe if necessary. Remember, President Trump, as he returns to the White House, this is a man who is not afraid to attack terrorist leaders in any country, including Iran.
Let me ask you one final thing on the defense secretary, Congressman. Obviously, Pete Hegseth is the nominee. There are questions about him and whether or not he will make it through the confirmation process. On the Senate side, he met today with Tommy Tuberville, the Republican from Alabama. And here's what Tuberville said. You come from a military area. You represent the San Diego area. I want to get your reaction to what Tuberville said.
He is a good age, too, somebody that can relate to the young men and women that we need to recruit in the military.
He made the argument that because Pete Hegseth is 44, that he is essentially the right age to be leading the Pentagon. Is that a line of backing that we're going to hear from Republicans going forward? And is that the right way to go about it?
Well, he's 1 year older than Don Rumsfeld was when he became secretary the first time. He is more qualified. He has served and is a battle-decorated veteran. So we're talking about somebody with the right stuff on the battlefield, the right stuff in intelligence, the right stuff in communication, and an understanding that we really do have to regenerate what has been lost in the way of the ability to recruit and retain top people, and then, by the way, make the dollars go longer. So all of that is going to be a big job, and it is a job for somebody who's young and who has stated boldly what his views are. And yes, it may make it a little tough. They'll have more questions, but the fact is, he doesn't mince words, just like Jim Mattis and others. Okay. He is straightforward, and he has the troops back.
Congressman Darrell Issa, Republican from the Southern California area. Thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. Joining me now is Lori Watkins, a Democratic strategist, Ashley Davis, former official in the George W. Bush White House. Hello to you both. Hope you had a fantastic holiday. Here we are. We're back. You thought the all hell to pay post, you think Trump got a little over his skis there, or
Well, so here's what I think about Trump. Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and so I'll never underestimate what he does. What I was saying to you before we started was just when Obama really lost credibility throughout the world was when he drew the red line in the sand over Syria. And when he did nothing, it kind of weakened the United States. So if he doesn't do anything, if all of the hostages aren't released, I mean, he's going to have to retaliate in some way. Not that I don't think he won't, but he has to.
So I think there's two opportunities for Donald Trump here. One has to do with our national security, and the second has to do with an economic factor. The $1 trillion in goods goes over this area of the Israel-Gaza war every single year. $1 trillion in goods. The inflation rates that are happening around the world, coupled with the rates that Donald Trump wants to bring down, these tariffs that he keeps threatening all of these countries around the world that he's going to impose, he has an opportunity to get involved in what's going on here with this issue with the Houthis. The fact that U.S. military aircraft carriers are escorting these goods and ships and services through these ports is not what the military should be doing. So he would be saving us there, but he'd also be bringing down the costs of these goods that are going to continue to rise. I have a client, by the way, that is involved in manufacturing. The amount of time that we've had to wait over the past year and the increase of costs for that one piece of manufacturing is astronomical. And I have been talking to people around the country that they try to sell these goods around the world, and they're having major problems because they can't get it delivered on time.
You could say, though, is this an indictment of the Biden policy in the Middle East of what's happened over the last few years?
Well, I don't think so. Yes, but I do. What I think Issa was saying, and I think what you were saying is you're looking at that. The Houthis is an economic issue because of the shipping. Something like 11% of global trade. Yes, exactly. You're going around the Horn of Africa, whatever, and then also with the Panama Canal. But I think that more importantly is the United States. When you showed that map of all of the problems around the world, like Trump, don't like Trump, concerned about his foreign policy, that was not happening when he was in office. And he needs to take control of our country in regards to the position that we hold in the world.
We were showing that map before the election saying whoever wins, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, that is what they are dealing with. And we've seen escalation here in the last couple of days. All right, stand by both. Other side of the break is Bernie Sanders on the same page as Elon Musk when it comes to how the government should spend money, what those two are saying about each other. And the Barstool founder, Dave Portnoy, chimes in with some words on the Hunter Biden pardon. Is he echoing what much of the country is saying? Full panel, other side of the break.
Here at NewsNation, we have political coverage for all Americans. No spin, no push, no agenda.
We're going to pick a side also, not the parties. We're going to pick your side.
NewsNation, news for all Americans.
Bernie Sanders going to team up with the world's richest man. The Vermont senator siding with Elon Musk and Doge, at least when it comes to military spending, saying on X this weekend, quote, Elon Musk is right. The Pentagon, with a budget of $886 billion, just failed its 7th audit in a row. It's lost track of billions. Last year, only 13 senators voted against the military-industrial complex and a defense budget full of waste and fraud. That must change. The top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith, telling me last week he would welcome someone from the financial world getting the number 2 post at the Pentagon.
I mean, it was a nightmare the way the Pentagon was set up. So, yeah, putting a finance person in there to get us to the point where we can get that clean audit and also do a better job on procurement and acquisition. So, yeah, if a finance person can make us spend money more wisely, I think there are strong positives to that.
Full panel. Here with me now, Lori Watkins, Democratic strategist, Julia Manchester, national political reporter for TheHill.com, Chris Starrewalt, host of The Hill Sunday, and Ashley Davis, former official in the George W. Bush White House. Hello, hello, hello. What is going on? Bernie Sanders, Elon Musk. Elon's now following Bernie Sanders on X. What's happening here?
You know, I've been a big believer that the extreme right and extreme left are coming to the middle and going to be on the same page a lot. But defense spending is absolutely out of control. Obviously, what Vivek And what Elon are going to try to do is something that a lot of members will agree with, but it's not just the White House that's going to put these numbers up. Congress has to approve it. And so every single person in their district that's going to lose money,
right, that's the challenge.
It's going to be really hard.
And not just every member, this is where it always comes, the rubber meets the road, is I used to work at the Pentagon and worked for a member of Congress, and I got to see both sides. And yes, the fraud, waste, and abuse of the Pentagon is absolutely out of control. $125 billion in fraud, waste, and abuse in a study in 2019, just in 5 years alone. That's outrageous, should not be done. The other thing is members of Congress and their districts. Are they going to be happy about this? No. But also who's not going to be happy, and Donald Trump is going to hear from a lot of them, are these defense contractors. They are absolutely going to be ticked off when the orders start going down, when they don't start getting as much money as they want. But last year alone, when you have $25 billion more being included in the budget that was even requested for,
Pentagon budget goes up.
It's just out of control.
So what happens here? Because you've got like these marriages coming together of let's do something, but there are also realities.
There are realities, and I think what you see is a lot of Republicans, or I should say a lot of Democrats saying they like the mission. They like that we could be cutting this red meat, or this fat, I should say, from the bone on this. But they don't like the brand. The reality is that this is still the Trump brand. So we'll see if bipartisanship ultimately prevails.
As I said that, I thought to myself, isn't it kind of insane that we say Democrats and Republicans agree on something, but there's the reality of Washington. And that's the problem.
Well, Bernie Sanders would like to cut Pentagon spending. He'd like to cut meat and fat. He'd like to cut a lot out of Pentagon spending. Right. But he doesn't want to cut at DHHS, and he doesn't want to cut in all of these other places. So Pentagon spending is the boogeyman for people on the left, and then other kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse are that on the right. We will have bipartisan agreement in, I believe it's March of the coming year, to prevent the agreed-upon budget sequestration cuts for getting the Wayback Machine and go back to the Obama-Boehner era of these automatic rescissions that are supposed to go into place. They'll vote in a bipartisan fashion to make sure that those agreed-upon cuts that were scheduled a decade ago do not go into place. The person who votes to cut military spending in the United States is in any way jeopardized. Our safety is in any way jeopardized. Their political career, their political lives are completely over. So when it comes to actually cutting defense spending, Bernie Sanders has been there the whole time. Right. He won't give up his sacred cows, and the Republicans aren't going to go for any defense cuts.
All right, meantime, Washington continues to react to President Biden announcing that he pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. Congressman Greg Stanton, a Democrat from Arizona, told us here on the Hill earlier this hour why he decided to call out the leader of his own party.
We need to build up confidence in the system, not suggest that politics are at play. The Department of Justice is an incredibly important institution in America. And they deserve, those professional prosecutors, the staff there, they deserve the support of leaders in this country.
Now, the decision is one of the big talkers outside the Beltway as well. For example, the Barstool Sports CEO, Dave Portnoy, taking to social media today.
And I've been saying it over and over and over. And why the Democrats got slaughtered in the election. Because they think they're morally superior to everybody else. And this is just the latest in a long line with Hunter Biden. Yeah, I would pardon my son, too, if I had one, if I could save his too. I just wouldn't lie about it like you guys lie about it. By the way, everybody knew the lie was coming.
Is he wrong there?
If anyone has ever had a person in their family or a loved one or a spouse or a child who has ever dealt with addiction issues, you will know, and I have been there, that it not just affects the person that's going through it, it affects the family member as well. I knew, also as a Democrat, but as a person, that when Joe Biden said that was one of the worst things that he could say, because he would probably end up doing this later on.
In Washington,
and that's what he did.
We get no answers and awful answers all the time. We all know this. And Joe Biden set himself up for this.
He didn't need to, and unfortunately he did. And
I actually thought
that's what we're talking about.
What I was supporting would be that Trump was going to pardon him. Obviously,
that would have been cool.
I think he would have. I think just the timing of the sentencing is why they did it earlier. But I get the line and all that stuff, but I don't find any fault in it. But I think it would have been really cool if Trump would have pardoned him.
I think it would have been really cool if Hunter Biden would have paid for the crimes that he committed. I think it would have been really cool and set a great example if Hunter Biden would have gone to prison. He made an astonishing amount of money trading on his family's name. And he got all kinds of special privileges and all kinds of special treatment because he was a Biden. And then when it came time to pay the piper and the bill came due, he said, you can't treat me differently because I'm a Biden. How dare you treat me differently because of my status? This would have been a powerful example if this man, I was about to say young man, he's 54 years old and has 4 children. If this person would have gone to prison and said, I'm ready to suffer the consequences.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley had an interesting statement out today. She said, okay, the president did this pardon. Now let's reform clemency. Let's reform mass incarceration. If he's going to do this for his son, let's try to do it for other Americans.
40
who don't
others
have
that are on
privilege.
the list.
Well, and what Mick said was actually the most important. Everyone's complaining about the judicial system being political, and it's.
So, by the way, what Mick said.
That just fed into.
You want to know? You want to know what Mick just texted me?
What?
Because Mick
I already had his segment.
That I was
Here's what Mick texts me. He says about the Pentagon. He says, we had a finance person at number 2 in the Pentagon. Congress ignored everything we suggested. There you go. The text machine from Mick Mulvaney. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
He's always watching the show.
Other side of the break, the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell spotted up on Capitol Hill today. What was the NFL's top man doing here in Washington? Leland Vitter joins on the other side. That might have been a question up on Capitol Hill today as the NFL's main man, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, seen with the Washington Commanders owner, Josh Harris, and the incoming Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. That is according to several reporters who cover Capitol Hill. Now, there is a push to move the Washington Commanders Stadium back to D.C. at the site of the old RFK Stadium. And believe it or not, the United States Congress has its say in the matter due to the stadium being located here in Washington. Host of On Balance, Leland Vitter, joins me live. There's actually a lot of layers to this thing.
Well, thankfully, Congress has found something that they can really sink their teeth into and fix.
Well, folks in this town want it.
Yeah. Well, look, folks in this town have an enormous issue with self-importance.
Yes, they do.
You think about that, yes, politics is downstream of culture. The culture is swinging back. Everyone wants to make their statement against woke right now. Congratulations, Steve Daines. The Washington Redskins can live to play another game. It does nothing to help the millions of Americans, tens of millions of Americans who are suffering. I think there's a lot of people, and if we learned anything in this election,